Hi everyone, welcome to Childbirth with Grace.tv. I'm your host Ilya Blandina, and I'm really excited to bring this. As always, my intention is to awaken your life power so that you can tap into your best personal birth journey. Today, this week, I started to become more aware of the discussion of the C-section epidemic and the United States, and also reflecting on my own personal experience, a C-section with my third baby, and then going on and having what's called a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after a cesarean section with my fourth baby at home, and it was a home birth. So, and I started to look at all the information out there and what everyone's talking about with C-sections. Now, mind you, if you looked at my website, I am a nurse midwife. I'm retired from the actual practice of physically delivering babies, but and now I'm focusing in on the emotional aspect of getting ready for birth. I did a whole series on pain management during birth, but what I found, and in my I was actively delivering babies, is there's a big component, the mindset of women while they prepare for childbirth. And not only that, but there's actual a mindset of the practitioners and the mindset of or where you're going to give birth. Of course, the bigger the organization or place you're going to give birth, the more rules there are. So with that in mind, in my journeys, from the very beginning, I always looked towards having either a home birth or a birth center birth, because I wanted less rules. I wanted to be able to be myself during the birth process, because that it's a very, very personal experience. The issue is that 92% of women babies in a hospital, and a hospital on the other side of the spectrum of either home birth or birth center is a huge organization and has a lot of different rules. And the rules are there, they're in place for a number of reasons. One of which is, of course, but another is so that the organization can survive and avoid liability. And with all these numbers flying around and discussions about VBACs and C-section rates and what have you, I had done just a Google search, the C-section epidemic, and found a really great book, which I started to read, and I thought I was going to go ahead and skim and get to different spots and sort of just do a book review, but I decided that it's better just to really read it through and present it to you as I read it, and interspersed with other shows are going to be with interviews and stuff like that, but talking about other subject areas. But we're going to do a series interspersed based on a book I'm reading that I found when I did an internet search about the C-section epidemic rate and in the United States, and it's awesome. so far, I mean, I just read the introduction today, and because I just got the book yesterday, and I'm leaving you in suspense because the book is fantastic. It's called, so far, The CSection Epidemic in America, and it's by Teresa Morris, who is a biology at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Born by a C-section, and the second by vaginal delivery. So, because of her journey, of her birth journeys, she decided as a sociologist that she was really interested of what rate is climbing in the United States. So we're going to go over some facts that I gathered from just reading the introduction and give you a little flavor about the book, but put it out by Teresa Morris. What a great, I mean, it just says a lot. It just says a lot to me. The title is fantastic. Anyway, so getting into the book, basically, by around 2011, the C-section rate in the United States was tallied at about very close to 33%. And what they found was that was an increase of 50%. That means 50% more C-sections previous 10 years prior to that. So from 2011, the C-section rate went up by 50%. But here, get this. In 1968 was when fetal monitoring was introduced into play while monitoring labor, and everyone was like, hip, yay, this is going to really save a lot of lives. We get to monitor people. So that was in 1968. It became, of course, much more prevalent all throughout the 1970. And at the time, 1970, the C-section rate was 5%. Since 1970 to 2011, the rate actually increased by 500%. That's 0% up from 1970, which was just 2 years after the advent of fetal monitoring, continuous fetal monitoring. Fetal monitoring has always existed. Before electronics, there was a really cool device, and it looked like a long cone, and then it had a flat area. And if any of you guys hear the plug, see the show called The Midwife. It's set in the late 1940s after World War II in England, and monitor the baby through what it's called. Look it up, Fetoscope. Now the modern ones looks like a stethoscope, and they have this head leaning thing, and you listen to it that way. But the old one was a cone, and usually made out of wood, and you got or obstetrician would lean that up against the belly, and through bone conduction could hear heartbeat, and that's how it used to be monitored before we started using what's called electronic fetal monitoring, either via what's called a Doppler, which is a tiny little, I'm sure you guys know about what this is, because now they're selling it at like Babies R Us, so you can monitor, and that's another subject because I'm not really keen on self-monitor your baby, because you could be picking up your own heartbeat and think it's slow, and then the whole baby movements. That's the best you can. If the baby's moving, baby's okay. But going back to the C-section rate, so of the 33% of C-sections that are being done in the United States as of tallied in 2011. From this book called Cut It Out by Teresa Morris, half of that, 33%, are repeat C-sections. Because as time evolved, for many different reasons, a lot of women are being advised that even though generally it is safe to have a baby after C-section, because now the way the incision is done is across the muscle fibers instead of with the muscle fibers, so it's horizontal on the uterus. Doesn't matter what the C-section is, because it can be different on the inside. So as long as the uterus is cut horizontally, then it's so when then they're still as strong. So with the muscle fibers, and those muscle fibers contract, and they could buckle open and break open. So you don't want, it's not advised to have a vaginal birth after C-section if you've had a vertical incision on your uterus. But that's neither here nor there. Pretty much majority of, and I'm going to say 99.99% of C-sections now are done with a horizontal cut on the uterus. So, but with that in mind, still, practitioners are telling women that, oh, go ahead and just do a repeat C-section. It's safer. The thing is, it's not. It's safer in that, okay, of the C-sections that do happen, there's a less than 1% chance of that incision breaking open, even if it's horizontal, but less than 1% chance of it breaking open. This is the same risk of getting pregnant when you're on, or that kind of thing. When I actually posed that question, that dilemma, it's called it like a paradox, to a physician, they actually said to me, yeah, but you can break it open by just doing a repeat C-section. Okay. Unfortunately, the studies now show that the risk to a baby and to the mom is higher with a repeat C-section than it is for vaginal birth after. So, so what this book does, it's really interesting. What she's done so far is she's looking at what are the factors, the unseen factors, because for example, really common reasons to have a C-section, and 90% of scheduled C-sections, that means, hey, I set a date, this is what we're going to do, it's usually because of 85% of the 90% is because of the baby's position. So the baby could be breech, and this is for scheduled, not like, oh, surprise, and now you need a C-section. So it's usually because the baby has a position, which is either breech, the baby's sideways, which is called transverse, or the baby's posterior, which we covered on a previous show about how to avoid a posterior presentation. So check that out on my YouTube channel. If you know, I'm going to probably put a little thing, how to avoid it's called back labor anymore. Anyways, the 25% is because of 25% of scheduled C-sections is because of the baby's presentation. 12% is because the baby's too big to fit through the pelvis, and 3% has to do with the placenta, which means either the placenta is in front of the baby, so that's called a placenta previa, or the placenta is heavy tissue, so and that's called an accreta, which is also not good, because that means the placenta won't come out and could be a major problem. And then less than 1% is actually due to medical conditions of the mom that require a C-section. For example, they have a cardiac problem that if they push, that it could cause problems with their heart. That's one example. Anyways, but I just want to read you a couple things from the book really quick, which I thought was really intriguing, because it's basically puts into words my personal experience as a practitioner. And here's a couple of quotes. This is by physician Jack Bianco, which, you know, she changed a lot of the names so everyone could be anonymous and say what they really wanted to say without any backlash from where they are practicing and that kind of thing. The things that we used to do to help make a vaginal delivery occur, we're not allowed to do anymore. So this increase C-section rate, I'm going to change my glasses so I can read better. But the increased C-section rate, it's really common to start pointing a finger to either the physician as a convenience for the physician, or pointing the finger to the mom, saying that they actually, I mean, there's this one quote is really funny, but funny, I heard it times when I was practicing. Let me see, let me go to that. Okay, like here she writes, one of the hottest topics in terms of women's individual characteristics making her more likely to have a C-section is the focus on the maternal request for C-sections, otherwise known as the quote-unquote two-push explanation, in which wealthy, educated women medically unnecessary C-sections. So that's also one hot topic that's being talked about, and there's just this chocked full of information. But here, Dr. Bianco also goes on to say that his experience of having his decisions and actions constrained, of not being allowed to make decisions or follow actions he thinks would lead to a vaginal birth, are common, and providers know this is making the C-section rate climb. Yet they are making the best decisions they believe they can, given the pressures they face. And are what I was talking about before. And as an organization, hospitals want to survive, they want to provide patient safety, but then they also want to not be sued. They want to limit liability. So they have this whole group of people that they have to make rules and regulations, protocols of, you know, if this happens, do this, if this happens, do that. And then if there's a negative outcome, is they're really going to analyze, well, what the provider do wrong or miss that this negative outcome to happen. And when I say negative outcome, I actually even mean if born and the ICU team needed to be called to be at the birth, and maybe even so needed to happen, but not necessarily that anything bad happened to the baby. So it's really, they have really, really tight on the practitioner and the mom, because on the other hand, if the mom comes into the institution and says, oh, yes, sir, I don't want that, or, you know, they have their birth plan and all that kind of stuff, and then they're being told, well, no, by the nurses or midwife or doctor, oh no, you need to do this. And if they feel like they're being moms don't feel like they're being listened to, and they hold their ground, and they want to proceed and just try, you know, because they believe in their bodies, then they're labeled as, you know, being a bad patient, or, you know, that mom with the birth plan. Oh my God, what's going to happen? There's a lot of dynamics around that goes into play, and there, you know, you can't really point a finger at any one thing, except that you know, I love this book because she's really gonna dissect it out. So as I read through it and bring you back what I, of course, go to my bookstore. I'm gonna have it in my bookstore, my Amazon bookstore. So buy it, read it, and read along with me, and let's start a discussion. So the author, Teresa Morris, she speaks about herself, that she was, after having her first baby as a C-section, and the reason why she had her first baby and the C-section was that the baby was breech. I'm sure you guys can relate to this, because that was me. As you know, and her breech experience, you know, the physician that she had didn't deliver breeches vaginally, and she was shaken and upset at this turn of events. And she writes, when I began to cry, the nurse scolded me. Be thankful, you are having a healthy baby. And after that, it's like the author, this happened to the author, she signed the consent form for the surgery and was whisked away to the operating room where her son was delivered by C-section. He had to stay in the hospital for 6 days because he had trouble breathing, and which is a common problem for babies born by C-section, because the amniotic fluid isn't being forced out as they're being delivered through the vaginal canal. So they ended up leaving the hospital a week later, and she put somewhat battered and bruised by the ordeal, a positive birth experience. So, you know, and this is what I talk about when and using the modalities that I have to offer to get rid of those negative experiences, to really clear the way, so that way your next birth is as it's not triggering. You're not triggered. You know, you're not on guard. You know, it's good to be just aware of your surroundings, what's going on, and look for signs, but you don't have to bring forward the negative emotional energy from your previous experience. But she goes on to write, I was committed to having a vaginal birth and to having more control over decisions, and that went into my care. She hired a birth doula, which is a professional labor assistant, researched having a vaginal birth after C-section, which is called a VBAC, and wrote a birth plan. Because worried about the risk of uterine rupture, which we talked about, there's a very small risk. He perceived, which is she was lukewarm. Her doctor was lukewarm about her plans, and would have preferred that she scheduled a repeat C-section, but she pressed on. for women with one prior C-section is less than 1%. And outcomes for women attempting VBAC are equivalent to women attempting a vaginal birth. I'll repeat that a little bit more simply. Basically, having a VBAC has the same risk as just having a vaginal birth section before. Take that in for a minute. I mean, so why not go for the VBAC? I don't get it. And that's the point I was trying to get across when I was talking to a doctor at one point, because I'm for VBACs, and unfortunately, a lot of hospitals put into place a lot of rules underneath the umbrella of patient safety that limits the possibility of VBAC. And then, of course, then that trickles to the doctors who don't really want to have the risk either on their shoulders. And before you know it, people are just always having C-sections. And that's the whole point of opening up this discussion and me tuning in, because I mean, it affected my life in many ways. A burnout for me as a practitioner, because my heart of hearts was really for a VBAC, and the more and more I practice, the trend was, okay, don't even give women a chance to VBAC. Try. You know, everything has to be on a timetable. You know, the labor has to be exactly just so, or else you get into trouble. I mean, really, I can see my friends out there who are still in the mainstream of what have you, and probably thinking, yeah, but, yeah, this, and yeah, but, and yeah, but, and yeah, but, and yeah, but most people actually do have a normal birth, and they're okay. And it's okay. Come on. Like a normal thing, you know? Anyways, she gave birth to her daughter vaginally. Compared to her first birth, this was as an incredible, empowering experience. But the enabling power of the birth was overshadowed by the struggle in receiving support from maternity providers, staying free of interventions in the hospital, and having control over my labor and my daughter's birth. So, I mean, she really had to fight to make it happen. And I was in her shoes. With my fourth baby, he ended up being a home birth, and after a C-section. And the reason being, luckily, I had friends who are midwives, and they knew it was my fourth baby. I had two previous, and they said, you know what, you need to be ready to go fast. You never know, because I wasn't going to go to the hospital until I was, well, by my fourth baby, I worked on a lot of components. So luckily, my midwife friends were really tuned into, hey, I think she's going to go fast, and I ended up going fast, and at home with my friends who are midwives. So, and it was the best experience, definitely a holy grail of births. And I really think the concept of birth, you know, and on your terms, shouldn't be like this holy grail quest, because I mean that's what it's turning into here in the U.S. is that it's hard to get people to listen to you, and it's hard to get everyone on your side. Your body. Now, first and foremost, you have to trust your own body. And if you're out there you're trying to get ready for either just having your first vaginal birth or your second or your third, and things went wrong in the past, and you're starting to doubt whether you can trust your body. And I can tell you how you can make that happen, because resisting. So if you don't trust your body, if you're hung up on, oh, this baby's going to be breech, or if you hang your hat on all your fears, then my experience, and if law of attraction and all that quantum theory, the field, all the energy stuff I'm reading, even my personal experience, you hang on your hat on all these fears, and it ends up happening that they do happen. You attract them, and through no fault of your own, because you're trying to protect yourself. You're just trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to prevent this? Oh, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. Well, remember, the universe doesn't remember you saying, I don't want this to happen. They just say, oh, this should happen. and that's what I was talking about. If you look at my video about why birth plans don't work, that's exactly what I was talking about there. The importance of getting yourself emotionally ready, really bodying a self-empowering stance of the warrior goddess within. Because remember, we have more ancestors that normal deliveries vaginally that had bad deliveries and died. I mean, yeah, the bottom line for all of this, and this is what everyone will argue, is that, yeah, but way back in the day, there was a really greater risk of maternal death and babies dying, all because of complications during birth. Yes, but it's like a pendulum swing the other way, and the overuse of procedures such as can come back and bite you, because they have risks too. And the research hasn't proven that it's the way to go to alleviate all risk of having a baby vaginally. As so far, what's coming up is a VBAC, the outcomes for women for VBAC is equal to a vaginal birth. So I mean, okay, so if you want to avoid any of the risks so you don't get pregnant, I mean, but that's not going to happen. Those babies. So we need to actually go in and set, really pick our practitioners well. I mean, that's something that I really innately knew to do with my first pregnancy. I did, pat myself on the back. Thank God I knew that I just innately knew I needed to find someone who really believed in a woman's body to have a baby and would only intervene if absolutely necessary, and had the patience to let it all happen. So and at the time, my obstetrician that I had found at that time, it was in 1987, his C-section rate was 12%. Think about it. And I saw, I'm going to put up on the my page, someone had posted a chart of the C-section rate just here in Florida in Dade County, and it was something crazy. It was like 60%. 60%. And just in Dade County. Now in Florida alone, we're above 33%, but just in one county. So if you end up living there, chances are you make an appointment, and the first thing that's going to happen, once they know your due date, they're just going to say, okay, well, let's just schedule your C-section without any reason. And I feel bad for those women that you know, I mean, if you want it, if that's what you want, then that's what you want. I'm not gonna say I don't think it's the safest choice. A C-section is what you want. There's plenty of doctors out there. Now, if you don't want a C-section, that's where you really have to do your homework and look around and see what are out there, doulas, how to clear your energy, your negative experiences from the past, your ancestral negative stories. You can call me for that one. That's what I'm here for, because that's a big component in what leads you to feel safe with whatever decisions that you make. Is how you perceive the world, what your worldview is, what your core beliefs are, ability to have a baby vaginally and naturally as possible, which is really the way to go. So with that, I mean, there's so much more I can read. Let me see. I think there's this place that said you have to read this. Okay, very true. Yes. Oh, well, I think I covered it. Okay. I think I covered it all. So with that in mind, here we go. Here, let me read this in sort of wrapping it up. It says ACOG, which is American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and malpractice insurers, which are the insurance companies, define liability as a crisis, and with uncertain economic conditions in the healthcare industry, this crisis has taken on an all-important status. So what I'm trying to get at is the driving force behind all this, the increased risk, increase of the C-section rate is really this economic conditions. An organization meets the needs of the organizational goals, particularly reducing the liability threat. So yeah, I talked about this already. So I don't have to read it. We're good. And okay, so yeah, here we go. Yet the answers to the liability threat produce a contradiction because the C-section epidemic stands in contrast to the women's and babies' health, to the economics of healthcare spending, and, as I'll establish in this book, to the desires of birthing women and healthcare providers. So what happens? An organizational paradox has emerged. That is why the C-section rate is gone up. It's like all these different forces. Practitioners really don't want to do all these C-sections all over the place. They know the risks of that can happen for women. They know all these studies. Women don't really want all these C-sections, but yet the whole economics, liability, all this stuff. So I'm going to continue reading this book and bringing you back a lot more information, and maybe posting different excerpts on the page there, because it is really, really chocked full of great info. So with that in mind, check it out. Check it out. Cut it out. Cut It Out, The C-Section Epidemic in America by Teresa Morris. And we'll be talking more about this as the shows go on. And next week, please join me. I will be interviewing Sharon King, who is the creator of Matrix Rebirthing, and you're gonna really enjoy that interview. I've known Sharon for a while. She's from the UK, so be looking for announcements of that, but that'll be next week. And as always, until we lean over, until we meet again, please keep tapping and let the loving tree of your celestial family be your guide to awaken your life power to the best possible birth journey you can ever have. Remember, the power is in clearing the way of your previous negative stories, whether it's your own story or the story that someone else has told you about their births, and any fear that may come up. Okay, so if you get a chance, click the like button on my page, subscribe to my channel, and schedule a quick chat with me, and we can talk about how I can help you to reach a childbirth with grace in whatever way that means for you. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.